So good morning. This is day 2 of our social media spatial short talks. I'm going to do a whole week on social media, and as I mentioned in the first one yesterday, this has been very much a focus of my world for 15 years, and I still believe it's poorly understood and poorly utilized. So we'll dive in this week into the whole world of social media, and hope I can shine some light on that world and how you could better utilize it. So I think to start out with today, I wanted just to sort of point at that place where I believe social media has its most value, and that is building community and building a network. Ultimately, it is about connecting and building that group of folks that share your same purpose, your same why, your same values. So it's a really great way in a digital way to really getting to a place where you meet people that you don't necessarily meet in life. And I wanted to kind of use an analogy here. Think about how when you go to a party, those folks that you talk to at parties, now sometimes they're people you already know, but quite often you'll meet strangers and you'll initiate conversation with those people. And if you find a place of common interest, you'll often connect, and they may become long-term relationships. Talking of long-term, my wife and I, we have a network of people that we know. I came from England, obviously didn't know anybody when we first came here. So we've met a new group of friends. That started out in a similar way. We had a connection, we had a place that was a commonality, and now we built these much deeper relationships with these folks. In fact, actually, in my case, soccer was, or football as we call it in England, it was a big thing. A lot of my core group of friends I actually met through football. We had this common bond, which was our interest in watching and playing football, and that's become much deeper. So that's kind of how we do things in life, and really that's the word that's the way social media works as well, except you get to meet a much broader group of folks, not those folks that are in your town or in your road. So that's the thing that one has to keep in one's mind all the time. But there is I was going to use the word conflict. There is somewhat of a conflict in social media, because there is a personal brand and there is the business part of social media. And the connection between those two generally is done incredibly poorly. And again, as I go through this week, I will share with you the things that I found, some of the struggles I've had actually in separating those things out. And I think a lot of folks have never figured out how to do that. Your personal brand is you. Your personal brand is that the person you go to at the party. That's you. It's your personal thoughts and feelings. That has to lead in social media. So you lead with who you are, what you are, and the community that you build in social media have the same interests as you. That's the starting point. Too often people get confused about where they should slide in business into that conversation, if at all. And too often you see people, and again, I'll highlight some of these in future talks, advertising their product or the company in social media. Now, there's ways to do that in a more subtle way, but none of us want to be sold to. I don't want someone telling me about their product. I want to know about them first. You only buy from someone you know and trust. You only listen to any marketing from people that share something that you share. So one has to be incredibly careful about that separation. And again, I'll cover that. So it's an important place to actually get to where you start thinking about those things. I think one of the places, and this goes back to talks that I did last week, what's your purpose? What's your why? If you think about what you're actually doing in social media, what's the reason you're doing it? I mean, you might be building your own personal brand. This is who I am. This is what I am. In my case, I've spent a lot of my time really talking about new. I've always been kind of looking ahead and thinking what's coming in a more practical way, not sort of a dreamlike way, and giving perspectives that are slightly different from the norm. So I don't like to ape and repeat, drink Kool-Aid and repeat things I'm listening to. I like to interpret and think and give maybe some different angles, right or wrong. And that's why I think there's people follow me and listen to what I say and, disagree with me or agree with me. It's because I have that sense of new, or at least different. So what is your purpose? I'll reference Simon Sinek. His book, Start With Why, and I spoke about that in one of the talks last week, is a really good starting point for you to think about who you are, what you are. So your values, your purpose, your why has to lead your work in social media, and you have to have that very clearly defined. It's not just an arbitrary exercise. It has to be a focal point of what you're doing and what you're talking about. Otherwise, it's just sort of chaotic, if you like. But you need a focus. So focus is important. I think the other thing that's really important as you're thinking about this stuff is actually building out a strategy. Now, we're jumping a little bit ahead by me bringing this up because I'll talk about this a little bit more later in strategy. But strategy building in social media, and again, it could easily be just your personal brand, or it could be how you connect your personal brand to your business. There needs to be a strategy. And Roger Martin, I mentioned last week, and he's very well worth listening to. Written some really interesting books, and he has built a strategy cascade, which again we'll walk through later in the week. But his strategy cascade really is centered around having a sort of a framework to think through what you're doing, what it is that is going to build that community ultimately. So more on that to come. But they're really important things. I think that when one looks at traditional sales and marketing, that world remains very relevant. But now we've got social media, and now the world's changing technologically so quickly. Some of the methodologies, some of the approaches there are kind of outdated. The traditional, I mean, if you think about sales is all about lead, someone you can connect to, someone who wants to buy your product, building a relationship. So there's a very sort of a focused place in sales. Marketing is about generating leads, and I really don't like that term leads, but it is really passing on to salespeople someone that might have interest in your product. It's very impersonal. It's a very hard slog for people in those areas, ever more. And if one thinks about cold calling or sales campaigns over email, less and less and less effective. So the journey that the marketing and salespeople's on is becoming ever more difficult, and repeating what they've done in the past is far less effective. Social media represents a brand new way to be much more effective as a sales and marketing organization, or as sales and marketing departments. And again, I'll cover how this is a much more effective way of working. And again, it's very much more personal. It's very much more connected into your purpose, your why, and this commonality that you can build between you. So that's today's talk. Again, I'm sort of leading into other things I'll be talking about here, but I think one of the key things take home from this one is, and what I'll hopefully be able to talk through and help you understand a little bit better, is how you separate your own personal brand, which is really what we want to connect to, that you as an individual, and then how you can actually then move into that place where you can take action on that interest. And that's a critical piece. So the separation is important, but the linkage between the two is important as well. So more to come on this in tomorrow or the next day, but that's today's talk. Thanks for watching. As ever, if you're watching me on LinkedIn, please feel free to follow me. I do lots of these, 4 or 5 a week of these type of talks, and a lot more. If you're on YouTube, obviously subscribe and like some of these videos. And again, that helps me with this content. So thanks for watching, and more coming tomorrow.